iPhone 13 on us for every customer. Current, new, everyone. To show the love.
How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.
It's time to be smart.
Roland Martin's doing this every day.
Oh, no punches!
Thank you, Roland Martin, for always giving voice to the issues.
Look for Roland Martin in the whirlwind, to quote Marcus Garvey again.
The video looks phenomenal, so I'm really excited to see it on my big screen.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and Black-owned media and something like CNN.
I got to defer to the brilliance of Dr. Carr and to the brilliance of the Black Star Network.
I am rolling with Roland all the way. Honored to be on a show that you own. A black man owns the show.
Folks, Black Star Network is here.
I'm real revolutionary right now. Like, wow, Roland was amazing on there.
Stay black. I love y'all.
I can't commend you enough about this platform that you've created for us to be able to share who we are, what we're doing in the world, and the impact that we're having.
Let's be smart. Bring your eyeballs home.
You can't be Black-owned media and be scared.
You dig?
This award is an acknowledgement that the progress we enjoy today would not have been made possible without the sacrifices of freedom fighters like Attorney Gray. I join the National Bar Association in congratulating Attorney Fred Gray Sr. on his receipt of the Presidential Medal of Freedom. May this award help ensure that his legacy of service and sacrifice continues to be a part of our nation's story for generations to come. Thank you all so much, and thank you, Attorney Gray, for all that you have done for our country. And as a fellow Alabamian, I am forever grateful for what you have done. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, while we are setting up the mic for the Fireside Chat, I would like to welcome to the dais past President Ben Crump. Roland Martin is going to have a Fireside Chat with our legend, Fred Gray, and he's getting mic'd, and so we will proceed with that next. Thank you.
Take that long. You got it, Doc? All right. Are we on? You got us on? Here we go. All right, folks, how y'all doing? Good, good. All right. They call us a Fireside Chat. What a fire. Just saying. What a fire. Glad to see everyone here. I literally just finished doing my show. They, you know, I don't know. They got real black. They texted me yesterday. Hey, Ro, can you do this? I'm like, all right, I guess I'll be back in town. And we're also streaming this, and so for the folks who cannot be here, they're checking it out. But as always, glad to see all of you here, National Bar Association, and of course, seeing Fred Gray looking smooth. He had some funky socks on last time I interviewed him last year, and so I see you got him on again, so looking all good. So first and foremost, just how did it feel for you sitting on that stage and seeing this moment, the President of the United States providing you the nation's highest honor?
Let me first say, before I answer your question, and you were saying how...
I'm going to do this here. He got your mic a little messed up here. I'm going to fix it. I want them to hear you. There we go.
Okay. You were saying how you just agreed to do this a day or so ago. So guess what? I found out I was going to be interviewed just a few minutes ago. So I'm in a little worse state than you are. Now, what was your question?
Now y'all got to understand, last year, when I called Fred to do an interview, I left a voicemail to talk to him, and his wife, where's your wife? His wife heard the voicemail, and Fred said he gets a lot of requests, but when she heard my voice, she said, oh, you doing that interview. So when he did it, I thanked her, because she said, no, I don't care who you talk to, you going to talk to Roland Martin. So y'all always getting good with the wife. Or the husband. That way you always get the hookup. So the question, Fred, was, again, sitting on that stage, thinking about all these years you've been a lawyer, and you're sitting there amongst these other dignitaries, and you are being presented with the nation's highest honor by the President of the United States. What was going through your mind as you sat on that stage?
Well, I went back and thought, and I just sit there on that stage and reflected my birth on December 14, 1930. Didn't know about that, but I learned about it later. And I knew that I was the youngest of 5 children. My father died when I was 2, and my mother only had a 5th or 6th grade education. And then I thought about how she worked. And I thought about the fact that they were very religious, and they thought I ought to make a preacher. And in those days, basically, a black boy could only be a preacher or a teacher, and if you did that on a segregated basis. So I thought about the fact that our preacher knew about this church, school, Nashville Christian Institute up in Nashville. So Fred needs to go up there. Didn't have any money, but somehow they got me up there, and I went up there to learn how to be a boy preacher. Marshall Feeble, who was one of the pioneer preachers of the Church of Christ, took me around another, and I went up here, and he'd raise money and bring people. So I thought about all of that. Then when I went back home to become a teacher, I realized, and this was 1948, 1947, that everything was completely segregated. I had to use the bus system to go from the west side of Montgomery to the east side of Montgomery. Our people were having trouble on the buses. One man had been killed, and they told me lawyers help people solve problems. And I thought about the fact that I decided I was going to become a lawyer. But first I was going to finish Alabama State. Not apply to the University of Alabama because I knew they wouldn't accept me. Go to law school, accept some funds that the state of Alabama made for black boys and girls when not at the black schools, black colleges at that time. And then I went to Case Western Reserve University. All of this came across my mind. And in 3 years, I finished, stopped by Columbus and took the bar exam. A month later, took the Alabama bar exam, and on September the 7th, 1954, I was licensed to practice law. I'm now ready to do what I had planned to do, and that was to destroy everything segregated I could find. It was a long way from September 7th, 1954 to July 7th, 2022 that all came to my mind. And I finally concluded, and I've been through a lot of other things. I was supposed to have had a federal judgeship at that time, the longest hearing, back in, 1980. But it didn't come through. So as I sat and thought, and I knew people had been trying to get this award for me for the last 20 years. Wow. And I said, and people have asked me, well, before it came up, what? I said, I'm not going to rejoice until it's all over. It's all over now, so I can rejoice for most of history of
it. You just said that you wanted to tear anything down that was Jim Crow. Just speak about the power of the law. There are folks who say, man, you should be in the pulpit, you can save people, leading to Jesus. There are people who say you can run for office. They can you can be an actor on television, but just talk about just the power of the law.
I thought early on, as a youngster, and maybe I was too naive to realize the reality of it, that if black people were going to be able to do any of the things that needs to be done and obtain the same rights that white people have in this country, it's going to have to be by the law. And when you look at the Constitution, and when you look at the amendments, particularly the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, they were supposed to give us all the rights that white folks had, but we didn't have them. But I also felt that I was naive enough to believe, and I still believe, that ultimately the law, we're going to have to try to work to change it. And I wasn't the first person who thought that. You'd had black people and white people who had been filing lawsuits since shortly after slavery to try to correct the things that I felt in Alabama, at least I would try. And so I thought we would use the law. And as I look back now and think about it, we have basically gotten off the book all of those laws that discriminate based on race. While it's off the books, in reality, we still have it in many instances. So we must now go and finish the job of inequality and racism so that we will be able to enjoy it and have the same privileges that all other citizens of this country have.
All right. What do you say to a 23-year-old lawyer today who looks at this conservative Supreme Court, who looks at the decisions they're making, who looks at Republican legislatures putting in places voter suppression laws? And I hear this from people who say, man, this thing is stacked against us. There's nothing we can do. What do you say to that 23-year-old today?
I say to him, if you go back and look when I...
Or her.
Or her. When you go back and see any person who's interested in it, from slavery time, will you think from being a slave to being here where we are now? How far have we come? We've come a long way. And how have we gotten here? We've gotten here by using the law. And in addition to the law, people have gotten involved in demonstrations and other things. We did it in Montgomery, the first real mass one, with 40,000 people staying off of the buses for 383 days, and nobody thought it could be done, but we were able to do it. So then we can't afford to lose faith in the law. We can't afford to lose faith in the Constitution. It's on the books. What we've got to somehow be able to do is convince enough people who will be willing to work together and use the law and vote into office the proper people so that they will properly administer the laws that's on the book and other laws that needs to be put on the books. And so we can elect people from the presidency to the Congress to the Supreme Court to our city and county legislature. The vote is going to be the key to it, and we can't lose heart in that.
Especially the fight to get that second black district in Alabama. Especially the fight to get that second black congressional district in Alabama. That's deserving. It's always interesting when I talk to people, and I love it when people talk about Montgomery and the bus boycott, and you hear all these different stories about what happened. You and I had a great interview last year, which you said was the best ever done with you. That wasn't me, he said it. But for folk who have no idea, just share with people exactly how Montgomery happened, you and somebody else sitting at a kitchen table, coming up with the idea. This is for all the folk who claim it was their idea. You were there, so share it with us.
Well, I think if there were any one person who wanted to get mass participation by black people in Montgomery to solve the problems on the buses, it was Joanne Robinson. Now, Joanne Robinson was a professor of English at then Alabama State College for Negroes, now the Alabama State University. And I was interested. I was not really, it wasn't my idea, and I wasn't particularly interested in the mass participation other than representing them, telling them what the law says.
Keep them out of jail.
Telling them what the chances are, and if you violate the law, be prepared to enjoy the consequences and realize that you're going to go to jail. And if you decide to go to jail, I'm going to have to tell you what could happen to you. And I remember later on, and I'm getting ahead of myself,
it's all good.
Dr. King said to me, when they were about to do something, I said, well, here is what the law says. And he says, yes, Fred, but you know what? There's a higher law.
Amen.
And we are going to go, and if we get in jail, and I said, I'm pretty sure you will. When we get ready for you, we'll call you. And we want you to come and get us out.
And you said, I'll be by the phone.
So after Joanne Robinson had an experience in 1948 on almost an empty bus, she started working on keeping records of events. And she was a member of the Women's Political Council, a black organization in Alabama and Montgomery that was concerned about all these black problems. And then when Claudette Colvin was arrested on March the 2nd, 1955, a 15-year-old girl just studied Black History Month, not sitting in the front 10 seats of the buses, but somewhere else, had just studied about the rights that they had. these kids got out of school early. They lived in a section in the northeast part of the city of Montgomery, and they had to ride the public transportation system downtown, then go transfer to the black schools. And they all knew never to sit in those seats. However, on this particular day, they got out of school early, and the bus coming from downtown to where they live, they walked down there because it wasn't too far. More white people were on that bus than usual. But when they got on first. They weren't sitting in the first seats. As a matter of fact, Claudette was sitting in the seat right before the back door. So there was 2 seats, rows of seats in between. And when white people came on and the driver asked her to get up, she says, I'm not sitting in the white section, I'm not violating the law, and I'm not going to get up. They literally had to drag her off. She didn't know anything about Fred Gray. She called her pastor. Her pastor called E.D. Nixon. E.D. Nixon, who was Mr. Civil Rights, called me, said, you need this lawyer, and I represented her. And I thought, and I raised my little objections and saying that this is an honored student, Judge. He's not a rabble-rouser, not trying to violate the law, wasn't sitting in the first 10 seats. I said, what they were trying to do is enforce the segregation laws. Judge Hill listened to me very respectfully, and as soon as I got to, he said, I found her to be a delinquent, and put her in the custody of her parents, and she doesn't have to make any kind of recourse. So what did you do? She didn't have to do anything, just don't get in any more trouble. Joanne, I was sorry about the fact that I wanted to appeal the case and did appeal it, but Joanne Robinson arranged a meeting with the bus company officials and the city officials, and they said they were sorry about what had happened, but that what they would end up doing, they wouldn't happen again. Then when Rosa Parks was arrested, and people who knew Mrs. Parks, she was a secretary of the branch of the NAACP, she was chair of the youth committee, and when she was arrested, and they said she was charged with disorderly conduct, and her whole demeanor was not that at all. They said, just, this is enough. So when I was out of town, and I'd had meetings with Mrs. Parks from the time I opened my office in October until the day of her arrest. We had our last lunch on December 7th. We had talked about what you ought to do and what a person should conduct themselves if they decided and they were asked to get up and give their seats. And she went back to her work. I went out of town, and she knew I did. When I got back, I had phone calls from everybody, including Mrs. Parks, including my secretary, including Joanne Robinson. And when I returned the call, Ms. Parks had come over and talked with me. And I went over, I talked with her, she retained me to represent her. And this was on Thursday evening, it's getting to be pretty late now. And so I said, well, Ms. Parks, you've done your job. I'll get back in touch with you between now and Monday. And she said the trial is set for 8:30 on Monday in the Recorder's Court of the City of Montgomery. And we'll talk about your case. However, you know, Ms. Robinson wants to get the community involved. So I'm going to go first and talk to Mr. Nixon, who had gotten her out of jail. And I knew he was a Pullman carporter. He was in town 3 days and out of town 3 days. And then I'm going to talk to Joanne Robinson and see what we can do. We'll let you know, but you don't do anything else. We don't want you involved in this. You've done enough. I went to Mr. Nixon. Mr. Nixon says, lawyer, well, I understand everything. You know, I've got to get on the train tomorrow and go to Chicago, and I won't be back for 3 days. But you go on and talk to Professor Robinson. Come call me and tell me what you want to do. I'll get hold to these preachers because they are the ones that are going to see people over the weekend, and hopefully we'll be able to do something. I went to Joanne Robinson, I talked to her, and I tried to make this as short as I can. This is the conclusions we had in her living room, and only the two of us were there. One, if we're going to ever get the community involved, now is the time to do it. Two, if we're going to do it, we need to have the two black leaders we have here. And that was, I told you about E.D. Nixon, and the other one was Rufus Lewis. Rufus Lewis was a former coach at Alabama State, and he had a nightclub, and the name of the nightclub was the Citizens Club, and in order to get in that club, you had to be a registered voter. But all he was concerned with was getting people registered to vote and to have them held accountable. He wasn't concerned about destroying segregation and all of that for a couple of reasons. Number one, his wife, Jewel, was the co-owner of the largest film home in town. And because black film home owners had a monopoly on black business. If you end up integrating things, they might lose some business. However, there's another part of that story, and that is they have automobiles, and they have drivers. And if we're going to get people to stay off of the buses, we'll need it. So we need him. We need money. We need that. So I said, and we concluded that those two men must be involved. Then we also said preachers got to be involved. So we said we got to get the preachers involved. So that was all of that. And then there was another thing you just might need in all of this is a lawyer. Hear him out, send me. So those were the plans. So we sat there, and I told, and she said, well, she was talking about staying off the bus for one day. I said, that's fine, Joanne. But suppose it's successful, and they stay off the bus that one day. How are we going to keep them off till I can file a lawsuit and that decision is made by the Supreme Court? So we had to then come up with a plan so that if they stayed off of the buses, we'll be able to stay longer. And what was the plan? The plan was that she was going to get some leaflets out, tell people another black person has been arrested, and we want to stay off of the bus as a protest on the day of her trial on Monday. And then we'll meet at the church and decide where we go from there. So then I told Joanne, I said, and she says, we got to get a spokesman, somebody who can keep us together during this period of time that we stay off. She said, well, I tell you who that is going to be. It's going to be Martin Luther King, my pastor. One thing about he hasn't been involved in any civil rights work. He doesn't know anything about it.
He's new in town.
He's new in town, only been here about a year. So he doesn't have any followings other than his little small group of people at Dexter. But he can move people with words. I said, well, that's the man we need. So that's fine. I said, Joanne, let me tell you what we need. What a good job for E.D. Nixon was easy. He knew A. Philip Randolph, who was head of his labor union in New York. And if we make him the treasurer, A. Philip Randolph will raise some money, and that will help us get that done. Now, what you going to do with Rufus Lewis? His wife, Jewel, is co-owner of the largest film home in town. They have the cars, they have the drivers. You make him chairman of the transportation committee, and what happens? And you'll have the driver. We recommended that to the people. Now, Joanne worked for the state. So it couldn't be known that she was making these plans. And Fred Gray just got barred, would be unbarred before we could get barred good. So it couldn't be known. So we couldn't let it be known that we were doing this planning. So we planted the seeds and other people and didn't want the credit for it. And when the official meeting was taking place at Hope Street Baptist Church that night, after the people had stayed off to the bus and after Ms. Parks had been convicted, Dr. King was selected to be the spokesman. E.D. Nixon was selected to be the treasurer. Rufus Lewis was selected to be the chairman of the Transportation Committee. And a young lawyer just out of law school was selected to be the lawyer for the movement. And the rest of it is history.
I have one final question. They gave me the 5-minute signal 10 minutes ago. But deal with it. It's Fred Gray. Out of all the legal things you've been involved in, and whenever I ask this question of entertainers, they always tell me it's a song most people don't like and never even heard about. What do you consider to be your greatest legal accomplishment?
I consider every one of the cases that I tried and that the Supreme Court of the United States agreed with the philosophy or agreed with, in all of those were involving racial discrimination. I wasn't involved in these other forms of discrimination. They're fine. But all of those cases, from the buses to protecting rights in NAACP versus Alabama, or Alabama versus NAACP, to gerrymandering and Gomillion versus Lightfoot, to rights of students in St. John Dixon versus Alabama Board of Education, to the jury discrimination cases, all of these cases, and of course all of your school desegregation cases, because I filed cases that prohibited discrimination from kindergarten all the way to graduate and professional school. All of those cases are cases that I think did that job.
And I will throw this one out. What was there was a case that you were involved in that dealt with one of the church denominations and African Americans and their money.
What was that?
There was a case you were involved in that dealt with one of these church denominations and black pension funds or something along those lines. Someone sent me an article. They said that you were involved in this case. I don't know if it was the Church of Christ or one of the denominations that you were involved in.
Oh.
That they said that was a very significant that people rarely talk about.
Are you talking about segregation in educational institutions, private institutions? Is that what you're talking about? Because I have sued state institutions that discriminated against. I filed a lawsuit, and I don't know whether you're thinking about the one that we filed against David Lipscomb College in Nashville, which is a Church of Christ related school. And I went to NCI in Nashville for high school, which was a Church of Christ related school. And A.M. Burden, who was a rich white man in Nashville, supported both of those schools and supported Brother Keeble, who carried me around. And they closed our school and decided to make scholarships available to black students at David Lipscomb. And I didn't think that they should do that. And I ended up filing a lawsuit. I lost the lawsuit, but I went in on the final analysis. They gave me an honorary degree. And that school and David Lipscomb has been supporting the Tuskegee Human and Civil Rights Multicultural Center, which is the history museum in Tuskegee, Alabama, that all of you need to come to and all of you need to support. And that is what the men in the Tuskegee syphilis study wanted done. So all of these things kind of come together. And I may not have answered your question.
You did. You answered it. You answered it.
But
you answered it.
That David Lipscomb has contributed substantially for 5 years, a substantial amount. And as a result of that, we've been able to keep the doors open. But then I would go around and make speeches, and the money would go to the History Center. But I haven't been able to do that now. So that museum stands a chance of having to be closed unless you and the 3 organizations here who are sponsoring it will help us keep the doors open. And that's one of the things I want you to do.
So how much do you want to raise?
Huh?
How much do you want to raise?
How much we want to raise?
See, I'm a firm believer. Look, it's like church. I need a number.
$1 million.
$1 million.
$1 million will get us a good start.
A good start, $1 million.
That's it.
Okay. All right. Well, right. That's why I'm like, as in the words of Frank Lucas in American Gangster, I'm gonna get that money. Good, $1 million. And so, if somebody who's watching live stream, they want to support, where do they go? What's the website? Where do they go?
Let me get a website. I have to get.
I'll look it up.
I'll get a website for you.
We'll send it out there. So the target goal is $1 million. And so, Ben, you gonna lead that?
I'm gonna lead it.
You gonna lead that?
I'm leading it for my frat, brother.
Okay, you do that. What frat is that? Oh, and the greatest now. I mean, it's a nice youth group, but
here's Fred.
So
he has the website.
Fred, give me the website. So you know what? So we go. I'm gonna go ahead and do this here. Since we're here. No, Fred. Do this here. You get your phone with you. Stand right here. And so let's do this here. Are there commitments in this room right now starting at $10,000 for your museum? No, what? Yeah. What? So what? What? No. I said no. We start at 10, bro. This ain't my first rodeo. You know, come on now. Yeah. So what? What you got? What? Over 2 years?
Huh?
What? Over 5 years?
Well.
Hold up, Fred. What?
As long as we can get some to keep it open right away.
Cool. So what we do is we say 5-year commitment to raise $1 million.
That's fine.
Okay. Ben Crump, you in for 10? Okay. Write it down. All right. Here I don't play. All right. Where right here? I want you to write that down. All right. We got 10,000 here at this table here. I see Rodney. Rodney for 10,000. Oh, that's 3 at 10,000. All right, anybody else? Anybody say 10? All right, 5,000. Level of 5,000. Well, first of all, Fred, put me down for 10,000. And this alpha, I don't need 5 years. All right, so we got 4 at 10,000. And then, okay, 5,000? 2,500? 1,000. All right, so I see a woman in the back. Hand her a card. I see Spencer. Hand him a card. I see the woman at this table. Hand her a card. I see 3 hands here. You have 5,000. All right, I see 2 hands here at 1,000. Say it again. 5,000. I need right here in the white. Right here in the white. Right here in the white. Right here. Give her the card. Right here. Give her the card. All right. Anybody else? At 1,000. All right, right here. Right here. Maurice Foster at 1,000. Gotcha. That's about 10. And I got about 4. Okay, fine. So we probably at about 80 or 90,000. So I'm going to throw out 500. Let's get to 100,000. Who commit to $500? Just raise your hand. They'll hand you a card. I got a table here. 1 here. Woman here. I got 2 here. Anybody up here? All right. Right here. So we at about 95,000. So Fred, we almost at 10% of what your goal is.
All right.
All right.
Let me say this.
Final word from I got you, Doc. But I learned a long time ago: never let money leave the room. Fred, final comment. Go ahead, Fred.
What I need you to do, I think he has a pad. Let's circulate the pad so that we can have your name and your contact information.
Oh, yeah, we handed them cards. They all got cards.
They have cards to fill out.
To put their name on it.
And get back to us. Because see what you can do. If you do this, there are some major corporations over the country who will help us. There are some educational institutions who will help us. But I'm just so happy that we start here to show if these organizations have enough faith and confidence in me.
That's right.
And I've been a member of all 3 of them for a long time, almost ever since I've been a lawyer, and one before that time. Then they will know that we mean business.
Absolutely.
And we will keep that open, and it will also encourage these other lawyers who are now working on phases of civil rights, which is even more difficult or equally as difficult as we had. And if they know that those of us who are here who made this type of commitment, we could end up raising enough money so that we could even expand that museum so that it can do, and it does three things, so I can tell you all of it. One, I told you, it's a permanent memorial for those men, and the federal government ought to help us. They helped Tuskegee University, and I'm glad they're doing it. They have a bioethics center where they've gotten multi-million dollars from it, and I helped them to do it. All we're saying is the federal government ought to also help the Tuskegee Human and Civil Rights Multicultural Center. As I sat up there in the East Room, the last time I was there is when Mr. Shaw, a participant in the study, said to the president, we've started this, we want a permanent memorial for it, and we want you to help him. And the president said, we're going to help you. But he thought he was talking about the bioethics center at the university, and it did. I wrote him a letter, and then bus ride, and in the Tuskegee Syphilis study you see it, where I told the president, we appreciate what you're doing, we want that, but we also, the men were talking about, they didn't know anything about bioethics, but they know about a memorial, and he talked about it. That's what it is, and I appreciate it.
All right. Fred Gray. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen.
Let's give Fred a round of applause. Thank you so much, and thank you, Roland.
Thank you.
For a great interview. Thank you, sir.
Love our new Alexa.
It's a Buick.
Yeah, Alexa.
Buick.
Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa.
It's a Buick.
It's an Alexa.
Coach, that's a Buick.
That's an Alexa.
The Buick Enclave with available Alexa built-in.
Verizon just gave us all a brand new iPhone 13.
We've been customers for years.
We got iPhone 13s too. Switched 2 minutes ago, literally right before this.
iPhone 13 on us on any unlimited plan for every customer, with plans starting at just $35. All on the network more people rely on.
Folks, Black Star Network is here. Oh, no punches! I'm real revolutionary right now.
Support this man, Black Media. He makes sure that our stories are told.
Thank you for being the voice of Black America, Roland.
Stay black. I love y'all.
All momentum we have now, we have to keep this going.
The video looks phenomenal.
See, this difference between Black Star Network and black-owned media and something like CNN.
You can't be black-owned media and be scared.
It's time to be smart.
Bring your eyeballs home.
You dig? How about sushi?
I just had sushi for lunch yesterday.
How about tacos?
Automatic emergency braking, one of 6 advanced safety features standard on every 2022 Chevy Equinox. Find new technology. Find new roads. Chevrolet.